This podcast was recorded on October 10th, 2021. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and people outside the binary. Broken Class is now in session. I'm your discussion leader, Thomas Huda. What an awesome pleasure it is at the beautiful Alton Baker Park here in Eugene to welcome Plaedo to the show. It's first show back in a little bit. This is a really cool character, y'all. You're going to really enjoy this. How are you today?
I'm doing great because you're a cool character, too, and so it's like we're cool squared right now.
Look at this love fest. Absolutely. We've never met.
No.
And so a couple of our mutual homies are going to be like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I love about the podcasting world and about new media is like, I would totally listen to like my friend Sam's podcast, my friend Patrick's podcast, etc. But then if there's a crossover, like, and it's my other friend on my friend's shit, you know, I'm listening to that.
Yeah.
You
And
know
then
what I
you're
mean?
like, how they know each other? What's their energy like, you know? Yeah.
And then you find that all of your friends are on a podcast together
Whoa.
and they didn't invite you. And you're like, oh, I'm not really friends with any of these people.
I'm getting sad.
No, you are a really interesting, poetic human being. You're a person who you have a bachelor's degree in philosophy. Yeah. You are.
You did do your research.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
You're a long time. I literally found out about you last night. But the music video for the new song "Celebrate the Liberation" had some really cool elements to it that I really admired. And so I was like, oh, let me get this dude on the show because you're trying to promote your album.
Yeah.
I have an album coming out soon that I'm not trying to promote. Wink, wink. I'm trying to.
I see what you did.
I'm trying to demote the album. You know, like, everybody's like, the album's gonna be fire, and I'm like, no, it's gonna be terrible.
So you can promote, you can demote.
Yeah.
You can remote the album. I don't know what that means.
I can.
Damn, mote's
I
a
can't
powerful
think of
word.
another word that rhymes with promote. Look at us, two rappers. We can't even think of the fourth one. You gotta have that 4 bars of rhyme. The first question I often ask people on the show: what is a controversial opinion that you have about anything?
Yeah, so that was hard, I thought, first. But then I realized, you know what? I don't think drugs are bad necessarily. It's like the intention that you bring to it, you know? But I think that, like, abstinence is not necessarily the route to addiction recovery oftentimes. And the path of getting out of addiction is often not a straight line.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, most of the world does some substance every single night to kind of placate themselves, to shift themselves.
And coffee is a drug.
Yeah.
For people who might not think of it that way.
Yeah. I used to work in this like counseling type of field. And like I had this guy that was like super judgmental on people if they did any like substances.
Right.
And then like every day for lunch, he would get like 3 Arby's and like, you know, big old burgers and tons of fries and a huge
he probably
drink.
got a big ass soda too.
Oh, yeah. Big ass soda every single day. And finally one day I was like, oh, you're going to get your fix now.
Yes.
Yeah.
What did he say?
He didn't say anything. He was just like,
Grumble, grumble, grumble.
You know, yeah. Grumble,
The
belly,
laws
rumble.
tell me that this is moral and absolutely okay.
Yeah.
That's funny, man.
So I'm still better.
I love the concept of balance, right? Finding balance in your life, in the things that you choose to partake in and the things that you even appreciate or consume, you know? So that is such a important component of thinking about what's going to be right for you.
Yeah. You know, I love this like Timothy Leary quote. He was like, I am 100% for the creative healing use of substances, and I'm 1,000% against like the escapism, destructive use of substances.
Beautiful.
I feel like that, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many ways. Like, fucking driving a car is something people are addicted to. That used to be my, like, really go-to cool-down, relax method, and that doesn't have no benefits. It's not good for your body. It's not good for the planet. You know, even electric cars, which are way better and zero emissions and all that, like, you know, if you're frivolously using energy that isn't needed, you know.
Yeah.
It's everything. Everything is pretty much something that can be a crutch.
It's so weird being a human. Like, my calm down thing is working out. I go to the gym like almost
jealous.
every day, actually. But sometimes I'm like, what's the point of all this? You know, I'm just like, for like 45 minutes, and it's like, okay.
But you probably get some good endorphins out of it.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, right
totally.
on.
It's a good shift from the day. You know, it's like whatever you're carrying before, after doing all that, for me, it's gone.
Absolutely. You know, it's just for anybody who isn't watching the video on YouTube right now and just listening, you're wearing this, what I would describe as very psychedelic garb. you're wearing like you got like a cool sun that has a face on it on your flat bill hat, and then you've got the zip up hoodie and a cool necklace.
Got a little peacocked out, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really the textbook example of full sobriety and complete abstinence.
Yeah.
So I'm so shocked to hear you have this really different view. No, I'm fucking with you, man. Actually, what I really love about your shit, and we'll be like super real and like, are you open to me even like being critical or
be real, be critical.
Right, that's what I love. Let's try to inculcate Eugene with a little more of that culture of not just being passive and like really, you can be super real with one another. But one thing and we'll get to maybe some stuff, and you can say that I am a terrible interviewer or I talk too much or my bars aren't nearly as dope as I think they are, or whatever the fuck.
This might end in a rap battle, y'all. No, I'm just fucking.
And it already is. I'm spitting that shit. Gonna flip the cap right off of your wig. That
Why
don't
you
even
gotta
rhyme.
disrespect? Don't you need to protect your neck? Don't you know that I get respect? Don't you know I'm like Inspector Deck? Check. But anyways, we about the love. Back to the interview, cause it fits me like a glove.
And you trust in mine, even though you said protect your neck like Busta Rhymes. But every time I do it, I'm crushing lines. All right. So what I love about you is I really feel like you have everything that I love about the quintessential Eugene culture is reflected so upfront and so positively in your music. Like this album that you've got coming out, I saw you talking about it. Earlier in the album, you have like really like dubstep, maybe kind of instrumentation, or like trap beats and punk kind of guitars and really aggressiveness. And even through that anxious, like intense kind of iconography and that musical soundscape, you really sound like you really are just a fucking cool ass person. You have a lot of love. You're a rapper who's very community focused. And so maybe what I want to ask you is, where do you strike the balance or come to appreciate the fact that like, I love what Wu-Tang does and what they did in building up community, but a lot of their shit is like, let me be number one. I'm the top dog. It's very individualistic.
Yeah.
Whereas what I see you being about is very collectivist.
Yeah.
So do you think those things work together well? Or like, what is that like for you as somebody who like, you're always talking about community gardening and shit, but also hip hop, like you want to, it's so
hip hop's got swag,
It does.
It's like, and everybody wants to be like the top MC on a track if you're all rhyming together in hip hop.
Damn right.
Okay, so you start off this whole spiel. I'm going to try to tie it all together. We'll see what happens. Y'all. And so, like, you start off about being critical and asking if you could be critical. And when I work with, like, my crew, we have this phrase in the studio that's like, it may be tears today, but it's all love tomorrow. And so it's like, the idea is like, if I help you be the best you, that's ultimately going to help me achieve my goals and what I need to do. And so it's like, how can you use competition and competitiveness to like really contribute to community? Because I think they're both of those extremes of like being for the group and also like having a little bit of that swagger that hip hop has. Those are like natural human kind of tendencies, I truly believe. So it's like, how do you find that balance between both of those, really? And for me as a community organizer in the background with this album, it was like, yo, what if I take that community organizing skill and apply it in a collaborative context, in a musical context instead of in building a garden context?
Yeah.
And then it's like super dope too, because I don't want anybody to show me up, And so I'm trying my best, and everybody that I get on a track with, they teach me about myself. I learn from them. A different side of myself comes out, and it's just so like awesome to do.
It's fantastic. I've seen in the past work that you've done lots of features that complement each other well, and where I can clearly tell like this. Sometimes you can tell when somebody emailed in a feature, and sometimes you can tell, and there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but sometimes you can tell when it was like two buds in the studio, three homies in the studio.
Yeah.
Rubbing necks, rubbing shoulders.
And that's what I did.
Did I just say rubbing necks?
Rubbing necks, I mean, that's Eugene
Get really
too.
close
That's
to the
Eugene
mic.
too. It's
Yeah,
kind of like
dude.
cat-like.
Yeah.
Rubbing necks, we're inventing slang. But, when I started the album process, I was inspired a lot by like Kanye West and Travis Scott, Dr. Dre's collaborative process where they did bring in a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I would have 6, 7 people in the studio and maybe 4 are on the track. 3 are like on other tracks. Maybe 1 or 2 people in the studio aren't even musicians. They're just like super cool, talented people in other ways that contribute to the vibe and the vision.
Yes.
And so it's like being able to create those scenes and those containers and see what kind of magic happens inside of it.
I love that. And when you talked about the competitiveness being a part of our human nature as well as the proclivity towards collaboration, I think you look at evolution, right? You look at the conditions that we came through biologically. Like, why do we feel loneliness? We feel loneliness in this terrible pit in our stomach because when you were away from the pack, it meant you were going to get eaten or you weren't going to have food. That's where loneliness comes from.
Damn.
And so, but there was always also, in terms of like, let's just say like reproduction, like trying to capture the interests of people that you could reproduce with that you want to be attracted to you, like trying to assert dominance, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of that shit, in my opinion, in Western culture and in America, it's gone off the rails. It's been way too much individualistic, hyper-capitalist, I'm out for me, and a lot of people like to justify it under like, oh, like people need to be pushed to be better, so you get really hard and gritty when you're in tough circumstances. It's like, okay, but look how many people are on the street right now.
Yeah, no shit, dude.
Like, don't you think we should fight for maybe not a continually lesser amount of the human pie? So it's like finding the truth to that's part of our biology, part of our history, and also like, well, we don't have to be relegated to that bullshit forever.
No,
we can evolve for a better.
Absolutely. Like, I love the potlatch system that was practiced by many of the tribes of this part of the world back in the day. And, like, that system...
Potlatch?
Yeah. And so, like, these ideas with the potlatches is, like, to prove that you're, like, the big man, Because they recognized it on some level. Like, oh, some people just want to fucking really want to be dominant or whatever. To be the big man, it's like you'd throw this big party. And, like, you would provide food for the village. And whoever could, like, muster up the support and provide the best, like, party and the most amount of food for the village, from my understanding of what I read, that would be the big man, Like, to be the big man is who could, like, help out and give the most.
Yes.
It's like, figuring out ways, and we don't have to do that exactly, but just figuring out ways, like the hip-hop example of, like, funneling those two into one container.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. As we sit here on this beautiful land that the Kalapuya stewarded for such a long time before Western colonialism occurred, And one thing, people talk about now it's a media firestorm ignited controversy is like critical race theory. Oh, my kids are learning critical race theory from a young age. I'll tell you this. I see you wearing nail polish right now. Yeah. And I didn't learn about two-spirits until I never learned about it in my K through 12. Everybody says, oh, 4J, liberal indoctrination, Well, what's indoctrination more than telling me that there are only ever going to be like two genders that assigned correspond exactly to your genitalia, and like you're confused if you think anything different. Like that's what we really learned,
Yeah, totally.
And so I love thinking about indigenous cultures and what we now call the Americas, or I guess what I call the Americas. Maybe not everyone does.
Yeah.
Two spirits, right? Like people who embodied a feminine and a masculine spirit.
Yeah.
And just there's a lot we can learn. And I'm guilty of not diving into it as much as I should.
Yeah. I think for me as a young man, as a young human, I really want to kind of realize both the masculine and feminine capacities within myself to their maximum or to the best ability that I could. And, I think there's a lot we could go into all of that. I do think that, like, the male gender is a costume that I've been given that I'm pretty used to wearing, and it's comfortable for everybody too,
Right.
I'm also pretty feminine in a lot of ways. Like, I'm much more likely to do the dishes and the laundry than like build some shit, like I'm not.
Or you have a nurturing in you,
absolutely.
I mean, I saw you had given a TEDx talk, 17-minute video in Bend, TEDx Bend, Oregon, where you talked about community farming and like what could be more nurturing than sustaining crops, a form of life that needs there's a lot of different plants that don't need humans to help cultivate them, but I really admire people who grow shit because of the effort involved. And I kind of think of plants sometimes as so this might be controversial to some people. I don't really think plants have feelings, but a lot of people do think that. I dated someone who was adamant that trees have feelings, and but if you think of it as something that can't survive in the way or thrive without you, then what you're doing really is a very selfless act until you pick it and eat it. But
it's ultimately helping the species because you're cultivating it. Like the fact that we eat corn means corn is like way more all over the planet than it would be if we didn't eat corn.
Right.
I definitely feel like by being a grower of food, first off, a great way to feel gratitude and appreciation for like the food that you eat is try to grow some broccoli or something or a bell pepper, and then do that a bit. And then you will look at the bell pepper or the broccoli you bought from the store in a whole new kind of respect. And it's like, wow, thank you for this awesome food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Cherry tomatoes don't seem too hard though, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, those are good ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
there's definitely easier
there's some
plants.
growing behind my apartment, and the sort of property person there was like, "Help yourself," and I was like, "Hell yeah!" And I just grabbed a bunch of cherry tomatoes.
I love them. They're like little nature candies, vitamin C tabs.
They are. They're absolutely. And I've come to realize more. First of all, tomatoes are just straight up a fruit. I don't know why that's a controversy. Tomatoes are a fucking fruit.
Yeah. Come on, dude. Just learn your plant biology. Like pretty black and white.
But I really enjoy them. I've come to really feel that onions, even the ones that aren't deemed sweet onions, I realize how much sugar they have in them, and they actually very much do sweeten up a meal,
Yeah.
If you could whip up something for me right now and you had all the ingredients available to you, what would you make for me as a meal right now?
Okay, you know what I'd make? Because I've been daydreaming this. Because I'm going to try to convince my kid to eat squash, winter squash. I'm like,
Yum.
He's like, I hate squash. I'm like, yo, let me try. And so I'd make stuffed squash, and I would caramelize onions and bell peppers, and that's going to increase the sweetness of it.
Yeah.
I would take sweet corn. That's also sweet. And I would probably add a little bit of like, maybe
Cumin.
a little kraut.
Cumin. I was going to say cumin. I just feel like you throw cumin on anything.
You can. It's amazing. It's like what covers like Indian and Mexican food.
Right.
Cumin. Like magic. Yeah. But I do like stuffed squash. And like I would combine those veggies. Since it's for my son, I'm really trying to sell it. I'm actually going to throw some like hamburger in there and like some feta cheese.
Yeah.
Take out the sauerkraut idea, but the idea is like the squash is going to be very carb and thick, so how are you going to add like sweetie foods or the cheese and the burger, the fatty foods, and then like what's your crispiness, your acid? You create that kind of palette of flavor and it's going to taste good.
Wow.
Yeah,
You have a freaking creative lens on everything, it seems,
Yeah,
and that is something I really admire and appreciate, and I wish maybe more people had, because I think the time we have on life is pretty damn short.
Yeah.
And, one thing I love about music, though, is when you make a recording, I really feel very much just looking forward to the fact that I can't control how long I'm on the planet very well. I can to some degree, but like past 100 years, very unlikely.
Yeah.
And I don't expect to live that long, frankly.
No.
But the recordings, especially in the digital age, they're going to sound, hopefully someone's preserving this shit, exactly the same for people generations and generations down the line.
Yeah.
So that compared to food, because you don't want to eat some shit that's been sitting for 100 years, but you might want to listen to some stuff that's old, and it's going to be really cool that like such a robust archive exists of video and even like probably like VR stuff of what it was like to live today that
Wow.
we can only really imagine what it would be, what it was like, 200,
That's a good
300
point.
years
Like
ago or
VR
more.
is like growing in popularity and accessibility so fast that we are going to be able to document this era in a whole different way. I never
Yeah.
thought about that. That's dope.
Yeah, it scares me too. But one thing that doesn't scare me, that gives me hope, is let's talk about your album.
Yeah.
And we could either start off by talking about this Celebrate the Liberation video that just came out, or we could talk about the album itself first. Which one do you want to dive into?
You pick.
The video came out, and remind me the name of the director?
Josh Arguello.
Josh Arguello. And he worked with Maxwell Davis, was that his
Yeah,
name?
yeah.
And really, really cool. There's drone shots. There's shots of iconic areas in the Whitaker. And tell me about the process, because it's spelled out a little bit in the video, like that you had intended to do this before COVID, and COVID occurred, and it changed your vision for the video. And I'll tell you this much, too. In the video, it said you had wanted to do it as like a big old, almost like a protest, with like 100 people, a protest party. Yeah, people just getting live or chaining themselves to banks, or like, stuff that sounded to me, I was kind of like, I admire the ambition, but I don't know how the hell you would pull this off, and I'm skeptical. Although I got to tell you, I come to look at more of your shit, and I'm like, this guy could probably get together 100 people, like legit. Like
we
everybody
did in the
knows you.
Occupy era. In the Occupy
Yes.
era, we actually chained ourselves to banks and shut down every bank in Eugene on a Tuesday afternoon one time. So like
Wow.
that line was like inspired by like fact. Some of the things I said was just to be kind of hyperbolic and funny.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, the last video I did was like a party and like had a bunch of cool people.
Yeah.
And like then all suddenly it's the pandemic, and it's
Yeah.
like I can't gather people, and especially it's an earlier period of the pandemic and wave than we are in now, so people really weren't gathering as much back then.
Right.
And I think that
Are you vaccinated?
What?
Maybe
I am fully vaccinated. Yeah,
Same here.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fully vaccinated. But anyways, like, I think to tie it to the album real fast is like one of the laws of evolution, I think, and I'm not an evolutionary biologist, but from my outsider perspective, it seems like it's evolve or die, motherfucker. So it's like, how do you adapt? How do you innovate? Like,
Yeah.
okay, we'll shoot a video with just me, and like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. In the Rose Garden, and like that train tracks by the REI and all that. And I think that because it was the first time I was exposed to your content, and this is going to be into the realm where hopefully you're open to me saying like what my honest first critical reaction to it was. I was like, okay, the flow is a little choppy, a little herky-jerky. But as I listened to it more and I realized what you were talking about, and also as I got to know more of your stuff, I kind of understood how to enjoy it better. And I think it's because I'm very trained in like buttery smooth, like on every single, every like
the voice is a complete drum, almost
exactly,
with the melody added to it. Yeah, I love that. And like I did that some on the album. Some of that is honestly like leftovers from my spoken word past.
Yeah.
Because I spent years like competing in poetry slams, and there's a different meter and a different rhythm and like that. And so like for me, a question I often ask myself when writing a verse is like, how much am I going to just go into flow? And I've also done theater, so like I really like to kind of act out like kind of parts. And how much am I going to bring that theater spoken word part into the song? And then there's always like a tension and a push and a pull and a compromise. Right. The more I do it, though, the more I do try to go towards the flow side of things. And then there's just times where I can't help myself. I'm just like, this is how I want to like deliver this thought, this concept. I know it's not like you said, just treat it like a drum beat, like a melodic drum beat. It's like, okay, this is about the kind of concept to the point where Yeah,
well, there's so many ways to catch people's attention and grab people's ear. Sometimes I think if people are too, like, everything is too perfectly rhythmic, and like I'll write verses sometimes where every line I'm trying to make, like rhythmically similar to the previous
But doesn't
line.
that feel good?
It feels so satisfying.
I know.
But there's also, like, I had a line on my last song I just came out, Kung Pao, the 16th bar of the first verse. I just said, nah, man, the verse without even rhyming.
Yeah, totally. And that hooked me back in.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that was a standout line.
Thank you. But, just like unapologetically, because here's the thing. No matter how you approach a topic like, we're going to come in peace, but we'll bring the guillotine and we're getting shot with rubber bullets. Like, no matter how many times how you approach a topic that, is like a hot button or controversial, like, some people are going to shit on you. Some people are going to be not accepting it. So why not just go all the way out? And that's what I loved about your music. And I continued to, what was the name of the song? I loved it so much from your self-titled album, track 2. It was called It's All Right, It Can Be Fixed. I listened to that in the shower today. And
totally different vibe, more like reggae. And
very much reggae inspired. But yeah, like, that's something that's cool about you as a character, too, is that you can exist in different genre conventions.
Yeah, I got the bee kind of hoodie and the bee on my shirt. And it's like, because I kind of feel like a pollinator. And that I bounced around a ton as a kid. And I lived with a lot of different kinds of people, a lot of different cultures. I was always new. And so I had to learn how to, like, get into different scenes and get accepted. And then I didn't have parents that really tried to get my needs met.
Right.
I love them, I'm not trying to insult them, but,
cool.
So I had to learn how to, like, charm my way to get my needs met and stuff. Right. And that gave me a really good kind of understanding of humanity and a love of culture and a love of humanity.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I love on my album that there will, I'll shut up after this, but I love on my album how there will be.
You're going to shut up on a podcast? That'd be
no,
very,
no,
that would
I'm
be
going to let
very
you ask
awkward.
another question. I'm
It would
going to
be
let you
very
ask
awkward.
I could just talk forever, but I will let you ask questions. So anyways, I love how on my album there will be, like, somebody that's from this culture and somebody's from that culture. Like, maybe there's a soul singer and a punk rock kid on songs back to back, and they probably will never be in the same room together. But, like, through the album and through me and this, they still get to be a part of a shared vision of, like, what it's like to survive and thrive in this era of time,
Wow.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. I'm on board with that. Is there anything else that you want to say about the video? How does it feel now that it's out, the reception to it? Another thing I liked about it was it really just, it was so sincerely brought me in, almost like a good story, because, like, the latter half of it, you're just sitting down with, like, a director or someone.
That's my executive producer, Maxwell Davis.
Your executive. Oh, that was Maxwell Davis. Okay, wonderful. And you were just, like, showing him the idea, and he was just, like, similar reaction to me, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And so a lot there, like in just a 6-minute period, I was like, I understand this person well enough to want to do a podcast with them tomorrow and get it out in time for the release of the album, which is October 18th.
Yeah. Thank you
Awesome.
so much. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Final words I'll say is, like, Josh Arguello's an amazing director. And I have one more video with him. I can't wait to, like, have that drop. And he's just now getting in the music video game too. So, like, it's really cool to see where he's going to go from here. And he's investing in his gear and his skills.
Nice.
And the Maxwell Davis, the other guy, here's my executive producer. And just kind of like how he plays the straight, more business-minded guy so I can be the more crazy artist.
Yeah.
Like, having an executive producer really helped me get this album made, and having him in particular kind of pulling me in constantly as I maybe want to spin out a little too much.
Well, hopefully, Josh, I emailed him late last night, so when I hopefully hear from him, we'll talk about, I basically told him I don't have an unlimited budget, but who does, right? But I do care about investing in my art, and I care about making sure that creators and people that do that awesome labor are getting well compensated for it.
Me too.
Absolutely. So, but the small bargaining chip I might try to use.
Yeah.
Hopefully he doesn't see this in advance. If he quotes me a price, I'll be like, I mean, I know that you're just starting music video work, and I'm making the whole audio track for you. When you do, like, wedding videography.
Yeah, that's his background, is weddings.
It seemed that way. So, like, that's a lot of the challenge with making a good video production is getting good audio. Getting good audio in a room.
Oh, snap. Yeah,
hard.
Totally. It
It's
is hard.
But anyway, so let's talk about the album.
Yeah.
Empires die, life evolves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I studied late at night, baby. It only partially was committed to memory.
Good old fashioned.
So let's talk about it and why you're excited for people to hear it.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of reasons. So I made this album when I thought I was gonna die, and
Really?
yeah, it was just like a weird time.
You said when you thought you were going to die?
Yeah, I'm living forever now. I mean, I'm still gonna die, but I thought I was gonna die very soon.
Wow.
You know, I just had this crazy little stretch. I was working street outreach, and I just see crazy stuff on the streets at night. And I had this week where like Mac Miller died, and that was like a rapper who I love so much, R.I.P. Mac Miller. And I broke up a machete fight at work, and it was bloody, and it was just intense, you know? I mean, some guy was hitting another dude with a machete, and they're both bleeding, and like...
Wow.
So I break up a machete
no,
fight.
I just wrote a line last night about having a machete, but like, and using it in a violent way, but in a totally fantasy-based, like metaphoric way. That's really hard to witness or to have to respond to.
Yeah, and I just like ran in. I just like honestly, it was a trauma response, but I just ran in. I was like, "Give me the machete!" And I like got the machete from the guy, and then
Wow.
like somebody called the cops, and then I left. But anyways, I woke up a few nights later, and I was just in incredible pain all over, and like from that period on, I was just like in intense nerve pain for a good chunk of time.
I bet.
And so I thought I was gonna
Total
die.
shock.
Yeah.
Did you sustain an actual physical injury?
No, it was just like I had been, you know, I had a good sales job, natural food sales job, and I quit that shit so I could go work on the streets and like kind of like live out my own hero's myth and kind of be like kind of Tupacian in a sense of like that epic life. When I look back, I asked for it, but I just experienced so much stressful stuff that at some point my nervous system just kind of like went, you know, like yeah. And it's been an incredible healing journey since then. But so I was like, if I'm gonna die, I want to make one last album. I want to make something that, if nothing else, my kid will know when he's 30 what I was like and who I was and stuff. And so then I just started making it, putting all my love into it. Like I started to go through a divorce. My wife of 13 years started to leave me at the beginning of the recording of that album. And
it's
like,
very destabilizing. Yeah,
and so it was honestly a trauma response too, as I just started running around to all these different studios and hanging out with people. I didn't know what to do with myself, so I was just like, let's get to a studio, like let's hang out. That will distract me from my like pain and stuff.
Wow.
And then I also have always been very socially minded, philosophically minded, politically minded. So that's why I think the larger picture came in. And that was also like beyond the collaborating out of my personal need. It was like I realized that like if I was going to make an album called Empires Die, Life Evolves, I can't tell that story. That's way bigger than me. So I felt like I needed a tapestry of perspectives to really communicate that vision of what it's like living in this incredibly strange time in history.
Absolutely. There's a lot of places I'd love to go with my response to that.
Yeah, right?
There really are, you know?
Yeah.
And I'll just say that I'm very impressed that you're able to reflect on it so candidly, because the nature of that shock and how much it takes over your body at a given time, you know, from the machete incident and from divorce and so many things that you were just articulating there. It's really the kind of thing words fail. You know, that's why we love to make music, because just talk is cheap. It's easy to just talk about how much that can really affect you, but the blow that it really takes is something beyond what we could really express here on two dumbass microphones.
Word.
When I was living in New York City when Mac Miller passed.
Okay.
I lived in New York City for a year in like 2018-19.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky. I had the scholarship to be able to live there, and I didn't have to pay for my housing, which was like, well, rent would have been $4,400 a month, so I'm glad I don't have to take care of that.
Yeah.
But it was also, I got to tell you, a very, very difficult place for me to readjust what it is to be alive into those circumstances and be able to succeed in grad school, and I was doing student teaching and stuff.
It's an intense period.
It was very much so. And I think the way I'm jumping off of what you're saying is that I think you and I both have a high capacity to empathize. And when we see pain, especially in its most blunt, traumatic physical pain, bloodshed, things happening in front of us, it doesn't just go in one ear and out the other. It really does affect who we are. I get that a lot from my dad as well,
Yeah.
And so that's you with that incident, that violent incident. And I would also say that it was so hard for me because in beautiful ways and in tragic ways, I would see immense outpouring of emotion on a day-to-day to hour-to-hour basis on the New York streets.
It's
and
so intense.
Very much so. Like I used to get upset at first. I would get on the subway and to go to my high school. I was student teaching geography and history. And I used to fucking see the most brilliant musical performers on the subway.
Yeah.
And nobody gave a shit. Not one person gave a shit. My perspectives kind of evolved to think, okay, well, these people are in car mode. They're just trying to get to work, But it was this kind of thing where you just have this stoic city face, and it's not even something that you put on your Snap story or something. I mean, sometimes people do, but I couldn't live like that, I could probably adjust to it better now, being in a better state of mind, and I had a lot of, I was diagnosed as bipolar on the tail end of this experience of living in New York, because I had a manic episode, and doing a lot better now. But it does remind me really of because I see that amazing beauty and that amazing tragedy of people in such pain on the street or violence breaking out or things like that. And then I gotta go to bed and just sleep it off, when the air quality was shit and the sirens and the buses going by my window were super loud as fuck.
I know.
It was very hard to it's hard to explain to anybody who hasn't been. Have you been to New York City?
I haven't seen the New York level.
Sure.
I do live across the street from that large-ass homeless camp in Eugene.
Uh-huh.
So,
Washington, Jefferson?
Yeah, I live on, I'm not going to give my exact address, but right beside it.
You don't have to.
And so I know. And so I hear screaming and crying deep into the night, and that's, reflected in the album. Or, for a while, my job was, picking up needles in street parks in the morning before the kids would come out to play. And there's a job in Eugene where somebody goes and picks up needles.
Wow.
And that's how bad the heroin epidemic is, on one level.
God.
And it's just there's so much human suffering. And I personally can't turn myself off to it, but I've also learned that I can't. It's like that throwing starfish poem, I
don't know it.
So I'll kind of give you an example. I'm going to kind of butcher it a little bit, but there's somebody.
Well, if you butcher a starfish, it just grows back its legs, so you're good.
Even better, I'm helping the population. Now I'm really excited to tell this story. So, this guy's walking on a beach, and it's just filled with starfish that some giant wave kind of swept them on the beach, and now they're stranded on dry land. They're going to die if they don't get back to the beach. And so this guy in the morning is walking, and he's throwing starfish back into the ocean. And a cynic comes, and they're like, why are you doing that? You're never going to save them all. And he picks one up and he throws it in the ocean. He's like, well, I saved that one.
Wow.
And so I try to ask myself, is this my duty right now in this moment? And if not, I give a prayer. Maybe it's good. I'm not saying I stop and do a big long prayer, but it'll be blessings on that. Because I hear just so much screaming. I'd never live a normal life if I tried to save or change every circumstance that I heard at that homeless camp across the street. Or I wouldn't live any life. I'd just be down there all the time, running myself ragged. I did that for a while.
Are you connected, say, on social media with anybody who is a nurse or a medical worker or hospital staff or anything?
I have a few friends that are nurses that I haven't seen lately, but that was what convinced me to get my COVID shot back in February. It's
really?
Went to dinner with my friend who's a nurse, and after talking to her, I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for being open to it, because it sounds like maybe you had a skepticism that you were having an open mind to having that knowledge void filled in, and that's something I hope we can all have. And the reason I bring it up is because, I have a friend, Ericka Thessen. She's a nurse, and a couple of friends who are nurses that post about their experience throughout the pandemic. And it reminds me of the starfish story because, Ericka, she posts the little it's kind of like the meme template of like the how it started and how it's going.
Yeah.
But it's like she comes to work and she's like, she's like a mask or two masks with the face shield. Like, you can't see her face as well, but she's chipper. She's trying really hard to make a good impact at work.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, she saw 17 patients. She's exhausted.
Yeah.
And what does she do? She fucking goes home and is a parent and then gets back there the next day.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful, admirable, and it's the starfish situation,
Yeah.
where, you're not going to save every single starfish, but you are going to try your damnedest.
Her name's Ericka?
Ericka.
Shout out to Ericka.
Big
and all
shout
the
out.
nurses, for reals.
Yeah. She does everything she can, and she went to the 4J school board meeting on Wednesday, where there were a lot of anti-CRT, critical race theory, and anti-vax and anti-mask people that, were expressing their opinions as they have the right to do, and she expressed a counter opinion really beautifully. And shout out to people that really give a shit.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. No, and I try not to have conversations on this show just with people that I agree with. We could even try to poke at that. Because I asked you a controversial opinion, but I very much agree that drugs are not universally a negative, destructive thing, right? What do you think would something we would disagree about?
I don't know, man. Like,
we gotta have it out, man.
Okay,
Those are the episodes that really.
Yeah. So what are we gonna disagree about? Well, we're both vaccinated. That's like the big controversial thing that I hear in my life anymore is like people's response to COVID.
Right.
I think we're probably on the same side of critical race theory. So.
Yeah, Christopher Columbus was a hero. He was the original I can't. I'm sorry. Someone's going to soundbite that if I ever become anything.
They're like, see?
Yeah. Oh, I knew there was something wrong with that Thomas person.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we don't have to.
Throw some opinions out there. I don't know.
I don't know. What do you think about guns?
I'm not anti-gun necessarily.
Yeah, I'm not anti-gun necessarily either.
Yeah.
Bummer. That's an Oregon thing. We have a pretty progressive state, but we're also kind of like, a little bit of personal responsibility in that realm. And, I'm not pro NRA is the thing. I can believe in certain civil liberties while not liking massive amounts of corruption and money going into an industry that, like, oh my God, they demonized Obama for 8 years. Obama's going to be the worst thing to happen to your guns. And he was the best. Their strategy on Obama was the best thing to happen to their sales in decades, as far as I know. They sold so many guns. There's at least 2 guns for every human being in this country. So like really what it comes down to, I think, is like we might not fervently disagree on anything because we're not going to butt heads super hard, because even on a point where I say, I understand gun ownership and I can appreciate certain things, and like especially hunting your own food,
I'm down with that.
And trying to circumvent the factory farming and, but also have a critical opinion of the other side of it.
I talked with a friend this summer. I said we were going to shoot squirrels and eat them together.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never
Is it delicious?
I don't know. It was just drunken campfire talk, but in my heart, it's something I want to do, or else I'm going to become full-on vegetarian. It's like I should be able to kill something and eat it. And if I can't, then I probably don't deserve to eat meat. Try.
I can't think of anything that I've killed, but that was bigger than I don't even think I've killed a cockroach, but like a small spider.
Fish? That's hard.
I don't really think I've killed a fish. I mean,
okay,
I tried fishing once when I was like 8 or 9 years old. I didn't have the patience for it. I was bouncing off the walls.
Yeah, no shit, dude. Like, what the fuck? That's so boring.
But don't talk to me about fishing. I'm half Japanese, bruh. My people go hard in the paint.
Dude, fish is like a huge part. It's like probably, I don't know the exact number, but it's a huge part of your diet. Huge part of your protein.
The Japanese need to have a little bit of humility and say, okay, like all the whaling, all the giant fish nets dragging them through the ocean, fucking up the ecosystem. Not the best. I do appreciate in general, like, you are an ecologically sound thinker. You think about your life in a broader ecological context.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a muscle that can atrophy for people, or it doesn't.
Why don't
strike them
people
as-
do it?
Well, it's really convenient to not do it, right?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of like experience, in a fundamentalist Christian view of the world can essentially
it's all put here for you.
it's all put here for you.
Yeah,
That's
so
exactly what
fuck
it
it.
said. And do you distrust God? Are you arrogant enough to believe that humans are destroying the planet when it's actually God who's in control? So let go and let God take care of it.
Wow.
I'm not saying that's responsible for all of.
No, but it's just like it's a interesting perspective. That's very different.
There's atheists that destroy the planet too.
Fuck yeah, there are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it seems very intrinsic to your character, and so we've talked about the farming a little bit, but just when did you get into it?
Yeah. So I bounced around a ton growing up. So I learned to grow wings. I felt. And I traveled all over the country. At some point, I needed some place to settle. And when we chose Eugene, I was like, I'm going to go here to grow roots. And then I participated in the Occupy movement.
So this is probably about 2010, 11?
2012, 2013.
Okay.
And so I was in the Occupy movement. And I stumbled into kind of a pretty important role or a busy role. I don't know what's the right adjective for it. I was very passionate about it, did a lot of organizing of protest marches.
You probably know like Allie Valkyrie.
Oh yeah, Allie's
like
my homegirl. Yeah, I've known her for
Paul Simon. Do you know him?
I know Paul Simon. Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of homies.
Oh, I love them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, but at some point, a group of us in the Occupy Eugene movement decided that we were tired of just like marching around blocks with signs, and we felt like we wanted to be able to make a change that was a little bit more concrete, that we felt, that we could see. And we're like, well, fuck, everybody shares the earth and we all need to eat. And like from this act of gardening, you can get at ecological issues, you can get at like mental health issues, you can get at health, just personal human health issues. And so we're like, oh my God, like
you can go as far as talking about racial justice and in the domain of access to food and over pollution of communities of color and lack of opportunities to like
so we were like, holy moly, on this one non-controversial act we can address so much shit in so many areas. And so we're like, wow. And then people feel good because at the end of the day, you see a change that you made. You're like, I shaped this earth in a different way, in a way that made it better, And so that feels good.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I feel cool riding my bike at least.
Yeah, totally.
I brought all this equipment and I brought 2 of these mic stands that are pretty heavy because they've got the weight on the bottom of them, and I forgot the mic clip on one of them, so I'm hand holding like a dweeb. But
it's okay.
It does feel good to be out here in nature. Like, you also know someone I think named Kate Davidson. She ran for city council. She's been on the show, and her, I used to ask people what's one way we could all be less stupid, because it was the name of the show, Less Stupid, and and I changed it around a little bit. I tried to get at the same thing, and she just basically said, spend as much time in nature as you can. Go out, be in the trees, be in the forests, and let's talk a little bit about hippies.
Okay, yeah, totally.
Because that statement in and of itself, to me, even I feel like that's such a textbook. You're not being a nonconformist. You're being very like predictable, talking about just how hugging trees is gonna be good for you, But then why is so much of society from everywhere, from all sides of things, they don't like hippies? A lot of people don't like hippies.
People don't like hippies, yeah.
Yeah. What's up with that? I think, okay, here's one
That's
theory
a
I
good
have,
one.
and it's a little bit similar with why people don't like nerds and geeks.
Okay.
It's because we are trying to play this game of being a human and being the shit.
Yeah.
And if you wear this brand, you're the shit. If you own this car, if you own this TV,
it's a good script.
This house, this income, hate this group of people, you're the shit.
Yeah.
And hippies and nerds and geeks, they do not buy into it.
Gosh, some people call me a nerd, some people call me a hippie.
Yeah.
Damn.
They purposely, maybe it's because on some level they're like, I can't compete in that world.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Maybe.
So let me just do my own shit.
Which is a feeling, and some hippies are assholes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some nerds
are assholes
completely
too.
callous.
Yeah, met some asshole nerds and some asshole hippies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a weird. I've never had an open dialogue about just being hippies. And then there's also like a new age component of hippies that there's like racist hippies. There's like
Yeah.
hippies. There's like hippies
Absolutely. Very non-empathetic hippies.
are like the most set in their ways that they can't think about like, oh yeah, like, there's rich hippies that like, they love their plot of land and they do their shit their plot of land, and they don't like the Black Lives Matter protesters outside, and they're like they might even have the sign up and they still don't like being called out on their shit. You know?
Yeah, totally. Or appropriative hippies. They're
Yes.
like, yo, it's all my domain. I can claim any kind of spiritual
One
tradition
culture, man,
or
I don't
practice.
see race. Like we're all part of
I
humanity.
don't see race type of shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of hippies that give it a bad name. I think that also, like society in general. And I think that you can look at where it carries over for nerds too, is like we are very disconnected from nature when we live in urban environments.
Yeah.
And so like our society kind of encourages that. You go to the city, that's where you're going to make the money. We're going to get the TV and the cool clothes so you can get laid and like all that stuff. And, you're not really getting that in nature. You're getting something else, which is amazing and super awesome. But so many of us are just kind of born into this kind of urban paradigm. Or like, our culture also doesn't really promote intellectualism, I would argue. And so, it's easier to be like, fucking nerd. I'm going to throw the football at them really hard or something than like...
Isn't that such a stereotype too, though?
Yeah! Totally. Oh, shit. I'm no better.
It has to be that they threw the football.
I'm no better. Yeah, totes.
Yeah, here I am, Thomas, the football defender. Let's talk the rest of the podcast.
So now
sports.
we got our thing to disagree about.
We're gonna just do a whole sports analysis. I love sports though.
I did too, actually. I
but
fucking watched a tennis documentary last week. Spent like 5 hours watching tennis documentaries after that. There's a great one on Netflix about Roderick.
Yeah.
And what was the guy that like grew up with him?
I don't know. Roddick was American, so
yeah,
I'm not
there's
sure.
an American that was also super good. And
Because when I think of Andy Roddick, he had like the fastest serve for a long time, and he and Federer were a little bit kind of like neck and neck, and Rafael Nadal was kind of in there. But I don't know who the other American guy is.
In the documentary, it talks about Roddick's like, dude, Federer is the best of all time in his opinion. But it's super fascinating documentary, Untold, and it's all about like mental health and the extreme pressure that tennis players like go under. And I never thought about like how intellectual tennis was actually.
So much to think about. Also, like, what other sport do you play under 3 distinctly different surfaces? They play in Wimbledon on the grass court, Australian Open on the clay court, U.S. Open on the hard court concrete.
Yeah.
So that makes such a difference. And like Rafael Nadal dominated the clay court for the longest time, and Federer would kick his ass on the grass.
Wow. Okay.
It's really kind of interesting stuff. But like on a broader level, because a lot of people just tuned out, right?
Yeah. We lost them. Let's bring them back.
On a broader level, like it is one of those things. Not anyone doing a podcast, but like a like long form interview podcast in a culture like Eugene's and Springfield's. I try to really humanize people, right?
Yeah.
And think deeply about what in society is broken and how we can try to ameliorate it and mend things. And it does disappoint me that sports just like, I'm sure that you could do a psychological study and say, like, if you were given a word, is this on the left or on the right? If you say sports, people would say on the right.
Right. Yeah.
But that doesn't have to be, and that's not reality.
Yeah.
So like, and when you think of sports, even the way I say sports, like sports,
yeah,
or sports.
Yeah, you said sports.
Yeah.
But look at me. I have 3 basketballs in my car.
Hell yeah.
And a soccer ball in my car, just in case we need to get down and play some sports.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to have all my golf discs in my.
I have a disc golf in my car too. Yeah. The
yeah.
fun one. Sorry to interrupt.
No, fuck you. Yeah, so it is one of those things where, and maybe capitalism is to blame, maybe human nature. I don't know what it is, but
That's something I'm gonna ponder actually. Is like, why is
Yeah.
sports so affiliated with the right and not like a left thing?
And you also
'Cause I
have people on
some
the
good-
left who feel that athletic accomplishment is not worthy of celebration at all. I would. I think they have a great case that like there are people that make way too much money
Oh, yeah,
playing
but-
sports, but to say that athletic accomplishment isn't worthwhile, or
Who are
or
they
to be
to
celebrated.
fucking judge, dude?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Cool.
we're all just here, like, everybody's born. We don't really know why, so we come up with a bunch of reasons why we're born, and then we learn we're gonna die, and we're like, fuck, that's scary. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with this life I was given for no reason. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll see how far I can throw this shot put. I'm
Yeah.
like, good for that person. They got something to keep them occupied from A to B,
Fuck yeah, I can't
Dude,
throw that steel ball.
Oh, fuck, dude. I threw out my arm last time I tried that in high school. Like,
You
yeah.
gotta do the push from like kind of the neck out.
Yeah. A lot of technique.
Well, here's my problem with you, and I'm sure other people hate this about you too.
Okay.
You're the typical too nice. You are like you can't be real. There has to be some bitterness, some like you got to be like prejudiced against some people. Like there's got to be some people that you don't like. So tell me about a time, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
when you caught yourself being like, "Oh, I fucked up in my judgment of that person or that group of people wasn't."
Yeah, I can think of a person type of thing.
Sure, if
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
fair to them, lay it
Yeah,
out
I'm
there.
gonna be good. I'm gonna be good. Oof. It's so funny because even thinking about them,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I want to shit talk that motherfucker, and this
Yeah.
is a moment. I'm gonna try to be as diplomatic as possible. But yeah, I used to work for a company. Now I'm like, oh shit, how much do I give up? So I used to work for a company, and I got a boss about halfway through, and I looked at the work that I was doing. It was in social work realm as ultimately healing work. And I felt like they looked at it as more about treating human bodies as kind of like cogs in a machine to be moved around. And we fought a lot over trauma-informed care and harm reduction principles, these like beliefs that I think are very important for working with trauma, and especially traumatized people on the streets. And they didn't have the background that I did in terms of personal experience or in terms of research, intellectual academic research. And so I get frustrated with them. And and at the beginning, I would try to help them get better, just like people in the studio help me get better, how my team works. We all are trying to help each other be the best. So I was trying to help this boss be the best, I thought. And they got very defensive and combative. And then I got in a combative way with them, It's like, well, fuck you then,
Yeah.
And like that refusal to take criticism, constructive feedback, and that refusal to like be open to growing when we're trying to work together over something I really care about, that definitely pissed me off and definitely made me frustrated, and I quit. At some point, I realized I wasn't going to change them. I had no power. I even went to the executive director, their boss, and their boss like, I feel you, but I can't really change anything.
Yeah.
They're in that position, and it's not my call to remove them. And and so that's something that pisses me off.
Yeah.
And then like if you're going to try to
Absolutely.
be a healer and a helper, then you got to do your own shit and your own work. And if you're going to refuse to do it and pretend like you've done it, like that annoys the fuck out of me too, because I take it so seriously on myself and
Yes.
reflect so deeply and try so hard. So there you go. There's some
Hey, right on.
Yeah.
But I still think that you were the good person in
Ah,
that,
shit.
but I think I'm sure that you had those flare up moments.
Yeah,
of you're like,
there's lots of
"Fuck that
moments where
person,"
like,
you
it's
know?
like, fuck that person that I
Yeah.
don't feel like.
Or literally thinking like, I don't know, thinking like that person is just bent on being an asshole, and probably they're not bent on being an asshole.
No,
they're bent on certain things that the byproduct of them is a little bit of assholery.
Yeah, like I have a really good ability to read people, and I spent a lot of time with this person, and like, I developed these narratives in my head, like I'm gonna psychologically dismantle you by pointing out all your wounds that I've observed and all your fucking shit that you haven't worked on, and like, I bit my tongue, but I developed it in my head at least, like where if it ever got to that point, I'm going to truly tell you like what I see as your deepest wounds that you're afraid to look at.
Right.
Does that make you feel like I'm the bad guy? Because I feel bad about that. I'm like, I shouldn't have did that. I'm glad I didn't, but I still wasted a lot of time developing the thought in my head,
I mean, I was trying to trap you, and it was a moving target because I didn't feel like you were enough of a dick. So I was trying to like say, let's lean into more of stories of you being a dick. No, but we are.
I just took this without
It's
asking.
been about a lovely hour, and I wanna. Is there any other thing that you want to talk about with regard to the release coming up? And then I'll hit you with the final kind of topic.
I think it's good to transition. We definitely shouldn't end on that note.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so we talked about collaboration with the album. We talked about death a bit with the album.
I love the album cover. The art is really cool. It's got sort of that evolution stages of whether it's Homo erectus and Homo sapiens, kind of evolving. It's clear because I actually kind of am jealous when I think about what my album is. My album is kind of opaque in terms of not easily understood what the concept is unless you really dive into it and really kind of, I understand why all the songs are a chicken dish like title or I understand what about that was trying to communicate something. And but the reality also is like, who the fuck is gonna do that nowadays? I try not to be arrogant enough to think that like my music is more important than any of the other stuff that people have the option to consume to entertain them or to stimulate them. So what I love about your album is I already like your album. I saw the cover and I saw the title and I like the album. I haven't heard a jack shit from it.
Like just like a song.
Yeah, one song. Because it tells something. It tells the title that I totally remember that I'm stalling.
Yeah, Empire Style Life Evolves. If it's about anything, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. If it's about anything, it's like that we are all in this era in which a lot is changing, like we're in Eugene, so it's like the epicenter of like changing nature of identity and relationships. Our economics are changing, the environment. That's the huge one,
Yeah.
It does feel like we're living, to me personally, in like the death of an empire, or at least some kind of epic transformation of an empire. But then you think about like, technology, and like that's like the type of leap that we are living in right now is something that only happens once in a great while in human history. I would say like one of those giant leaps.
Totally unprecedented when you talk about technology.
Yeah, and so it's like one thing I'm proud of that I love, and I agree with you, like I was singing like total pop songs this morning,
Yeah.
For real. It's like Billie Eilish. Like,
she's very talented.
She is, dude. Sam Smith. But, so I like stuff like that, too.
Charlie Puth is really talented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well,
but anyways.
I love your take on it. And for me, when you say that you feel like the empire could be dying, I hope you're right. But I kind of am more cynically in the position that maybe the empire is actually kind of fortifying. I really feel sometimes that the problems in society, it might not be the exact same people, but it's their descendants. Elon Musk's money comes from racist South African oppression, apartheid.
That's true. That's some big shit.
You know, and what Bezos is doing. The Amazon workers are being treated like shit. Like, there's some of them where it's like you have to deliver and assemble like people's furniture for them on a time crunch. Like, so like, oh yeah, deliver it, and then you have about like 17 minutes to build like this crazy like complicated like a couch or something, and if not, and you got them peeing in bags and pooping in bags in their trucks because
God, I hope this House of Cards falls, man. Like,
I hope that people are able to see the benefits that a newer system can inculcate to everybody.
I still think that there's a lot of good going on too, and a lot of change, like awareness nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've briefly broached critical race theory. 30 years ago, 50 years ago, like look at the kind of evolution of that into our awareness, you
Right.
know.
Right.
But yeah, so
and
it's
then
like,
to push back on that, I would say 30 or 50 years ago, people weren't as much under the delusion that, oh, we solved that. Wipe your
yeah,
hands of it.
word.
There's a lot of people that think segregation isn't happening now. That was in the 60s. MLK solved it. Malcolm X was a little more mean about it, and he helped. But,
Oh my
these
God,
are,
that's totally a very common thought, though. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So, but we have to perpetually...
And so that's kind of like the thing too. It's like there's a book that's a character in it says the bigger the yin, the bigger the yang. He always says, and like it's kind of like that in a sense, you know. And that's why I wanted that dichotomy in the title of like, you know, the first half of the album is the angriest, darkest, anxious music I've ever made in my career.
Yeah.
Second half's the most soulful, loving, joyous music because it's all fucking here right
I
now
love that.
going on.
I
You
love that.
know. Yeah.
A couple albums that remind me of that. Just real quick,
Yeah.
Sammy Warmhands and Ogar Burl, my buddies. They have an album called Rare Form. It ends with a song called Good Old Days. It's really I feel that same way. Another album called Death of a Salesman by the Illusionists, and then the third one, ICP. I'm a big fan of ICP, Insane Clown Posse, and they have an album called Fearless Fred Fury. And the song Freedom at the end is like the most iconically like you can do anything with your life. But the first five songs are just like so I love sequencing, track sequencing.
Oh, I'm such a nerd for that.
Yeah.
I will admit that
Taking
I
people
dressed
on a
up like
journey.
Violent J for Halloween one year.
Dude, bump the shit out of my elbow for that. So for the last little topic,
Yeah.
I'm trying this out as a way to end the show.
Okay.
Real quick, tell me about something that's broken in society or in your own life.
There's a lot that's broken.
Mm-hmm. Try to make it quick.
Yeah. Okay. So something that I think that is broken in this world is our sense of community. And I think that there's all kinds of waste, both in material resources as well as in human potential that is a result of the brokenness of community.
Wow, okay. So you're talking about waste of resources and human waste of potential. What is a solution, an actionable solution to that?
Yeah, I would say let's have more grace with each other and more gentleness and tenderness with each other, or maybe just that understanding, so that we have less fear about approaching each other to experience life together for all that can mean. And then call somebody that you love and like, put yourself out on a limb and say, hey, you want to go on a hike or something? You want to share a meal together?
Check in with people you haven't heard from.
Yeah.
Or people that are posting too much. Are they really are they doing that because they're trying to fill something? They're feeling lonely every day,
Yeah.
just check in with people.
Yeah.
And if people check in with you, don't hide from it,
Yeah.
know? Like,
and please don't
you don't have to expose your inner, turmoils to anybody, but try to look at other people who are showing compassion to you as like there's opportunity there to come together because nobody can see. I can't see myself. I know I probably am the person who knows the most about my life and how I'm doing.
Yeah.
But when I walked here, everybody else could see what I looked like and could see what mood I appeared to be in and how much I'm hunched over or how much I'm sticking my chest out. And I can't see that,
Yeah.
And so we can really learn from others that do bother to check in, and because otherwise we might waste our potential thinking that, man, this is just as shitty as life is. The shittiness of life I feel now is how it's always going to be.
Yeah. And, I'm a spoon. And what I mean is, like, if you need me for spoon activities, we eatin'. We doing good. If you need me to be a fork, we fucked, But, dude, if you're a fork and I'm a spoon, now imagine what we can be eating together,
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I really thought you were talking about spooning, like stacking onto each other.
Oh, man. I love to spoon. My last girlfriend, she always wanted to be the big spoon, and I grew to love being the little spoon. Relationship before that, I was always the big spoon because it's a traditional male.
Right.
I like both sides of the spooning.
get fucking restless when I'm in the same position for too long, and so yeah,
Big spoon
I'm
works
on all
better for
sides
you.
of the spoon. I'm on all sides of the spoon. Yeah,
Okay.
big flip over. I'm the little spoon now. All that. All right. This is a beautiful thing that we now have this friendship.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Didn't exist before.
Nope.
Shout out to everyone. We'll end with credits. We want to shout out Brendan Lynch Cerebral because he's
Yeah.
awesome. We want to shout out Simone Baum. We want to shout out, I don't know, Zondi Zinke, Otis Hashmeyer. They're cool people.
Yeah,
Who
yeah,
else do we
yeah.
want to shout out?
I want to shout out my buddy Maxwell Davis.
Yep.
I want to shout out Drew Mesick, my big bro. My little bro, Ob the server. Shout out both sides of them.
Shout out videographers I want to work with, like Ife, the video dope dealer.
Oh, he's dope.
Traylon Day.
Shout out
Day in the
Traylon,
life.
dude. Yeah, yeah.
And shout out your god dang selves, y'all.
Shout out y'all self.
Much love. Thanks, everybody. Have a
Peace.
great day.
Dude, that was dope.
Yeah.
That was fun.